They called it a race, but it was nothing like anything Earth had ever known. There were no tracks, no cheering crowds, no finish lines gilded in gold. In the far and dying reaches of the cosmos, where stars bled slowly into the abyss and light itself grew tired, they held the tournament of spiral velocity. Invitations were never extended. Participation was a consequence, a punishment, a gravitational sentence written not in ink, but encoded within the resonance of dark matter, rippling through time and pulling the damned from across galaxies. Captain Zarrar received his invitation not by message but by erasure. The crew of the UMS Valiant disappeared in a blink, their presence scrubbed from the ship's records, their personal belongings evaporated, their laughter echoing no more through the hollow metal corridors. One moment they were mapping the outer rings of the Melnar expanse, and the next, Zarrar stood alone on the bridge, the stars outside smeared into indecipherable symbols, shapes that bent his mind like melted glass. He should have died in those first moments, but something held him, a tether woven from fear and fascination, wrapped tight around his spine. The ship moved on its own, accelerating into a region beyond catalog, beyond geometry, beyond sanity. Space curled into itself, dimensions folded like origami cursed by an ancient hand, time slowed to syrup and then shattered altogether. Zarrar saw events before they occurred, his own scream echoing back to him from a throat not yet open. Then came the others, vessels twisted into obscene parodies of design, things with wings that fluttered in vacuum, crafts made of bone and sorrow, engines that sang in the voices of children long dead. They flanked him in silence, no names, no signals, just presence, each pilot alone, each face glimpsed for only an instant through viewports too dark to reflect light. Some were no longer recognizably human. One appeared as a pulsating mass of teeth encased in glass. Another was a hollow suit, filled not with flesh but with black vapor that whispered in binary. The race began without warning. A pulse of raw dread surged through the cosmos, not a sound but a feeling, like the moment before impact, like the silence before birth. Zarrar's hands moved not of his own will but from something inside him, something ancient and buried. The ship bucked and launched forward into a corridor of existence that defied all physics. This was not travel, this was revelation. Planets passed in an eye. Blink, stars collapsed and reformed as he watched, and still the others kept pace. He blinked and found himself flying through the internal anatomy of some unfathomably large entity, organs like planetoids, veins pulsing with blue fire. Another blink, he was outside of time, watching civilizations rise and fall in seconds, each one screaming at the sky before silence reclaimed them. The others raced beside him, but their ships were mutating now. One dissolved into strings of language. Another became a series of overlapping faces, all screaming in different pitches. His own ship groaned, the hull weeping tears of coolant as if mourning the sanity it once knew. And then the whispers began. They came not through the comms but through his teeth, his bones, vibrating deep in his marrow. They spoke in riddles, in truths too massive to process, in memories that weren't his. You are the fuel, you are the map, you are the lie. With each mile the whispers grew louder. Zarrar clawed at his ears, but the sound came from within. He saw Earth again, but it was wrong. Skies the color of bruises, oceans that reflected nothing, cities built in impossible spirals where people moved backwards and mouthed prayers in reverse. Was this memory? Or warning, or prophecy? The ship dipped and tore through what seemed to be the pupil of a colossal eye, wider than galaxies. Behind it, consciousness stirred, not a being, not even a god, something else. An intelligence without motive, without morality, its attention like the sun, indifferent, unblinking, lethal. Zarrar's mind fractured then, not in a scream but in a stillness so absolute it hurt, his past unraveled. His name lost meaning. He remembered being born in a hospital that never existed. Remembered his mother, her face flickering between dozens of versions, each one more alien than the last. Was he ever real? Or was he conjured by the race itself, a necessary placeholder in a drama that fed something older than the universe? The course narrowed and time began again, but in reverse. He aged backwards, watching his own body knit itself younger, his thoughts regressing into pure sensation. He was a child, an embryo, a concept, then nothing, then everything, then Zarrar again, fully formed, floating in darkness before the final stretch. One by one, the other racers dropped away. Some combusted into color, others spiraled into non-existence, their vessels absorbed by the fabric of unreality. Zarrar pushed forward, no longer with purpose, but from inertia, from the terrible compulsion to know, to see what lay at the end. The whispers became screams, each one a chorus of all his possible selves dying in tandem. He emerged into a void not of blackness, but of thought, consciousness made visible, raw and endless, in the center a shape ever-changing. A Mobius brain, a paradox given form, the finish line, but what was the reward, what was the cost? He docked not because he chose to, but because the ship no longer needed motion. It was over. He stepped onto a surface that wasn't solid, wasn't liquid, wasn't even space. It was a thought made tactile. Before him, a presence unfolded. Not visually, but conceptually, it knew him, knew everything, and it offered him the truth, not a truth, the truth. It poured into him like molten ice. He saw the universe as it really was, a wound in something larger, something dying, reality a scab on a greater infection, life an accident born from entropy's forgotten child, humans a failed attempt by the cosmos to dream itself awake. He saw the origin, not a bang, a scream, a denial, a refusal to be nothing which birthed everything, and in doing so, cursed it to die screaming. He saw all of time as a cycle of questions with no answers, each one feeding the next like an Ouroboros devouring its tail in search of its own beginning. Zarrar laughed, or cried, or ceased to be, or all three. The presence receded not in anger or joy, but because it had no more to give. He had won or lost or simply played his part. He was returned to his ship alone again, but not truly. Now he saw the whispers as threads in everything. Every atom sang the race's song, every photon bent with memory. He set course for Earth, but Earth was no longer home. He had seen too much, understood too deeply. He knew that behind every joy was a hidden terror, and behind every terror an even deeper silence. When he returned, he spoke of nothing. They hailed him as survivor, as hero, but in his eyes burned a knowing that unmoored those who looked too long. Some went mad, some killed themselves, some began to whisper in their sleep. And he waited, because he knew the race never ends. It loops forever, and someday it will call again, and someday someone will answer, not to win, but to understand, and understanding is the cruelest prize of all. This is Dark Universe Files. Subscribe for more stories that whisper from the edge of existence and pull you into the void. If you hear them, you've already begun the race.